Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Yastra, coming to you from NAM, Melbourne, Australia. Let's begin.
Welcome back to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast. There's a mega misconception that living sustainably comes with a hefty price tag. And while that can certainly be true, it doesn't always have to be. So in this episode, we're exploring how to slash our home energy bills while doing our part for the planet. And to guide us through this, we're speaking to Tim Forcey, an independent home comfort and energy advisor, trained as a chemical engineer specializing in sustainable energy production. Tim has advised thousands of households, helping them to save money and reduce their environmental impacts. He even has a book coming out called My Efficient Electric Home Handbook, detailing his learnings and advice on everything from home and hot water heating to drought proofing and insulation to window coverings, solar panels, batteries, and more. Hi, Tim. It's great to have you on the show. How are you going?
Thanks for having me. Very good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you here too. Super keen to get into detail. But before we get started, I'm really curious to know, through your work, how much have your clients been able to save?
So I operate out of Melbourne, Australia, but I've got some understanding what goes on around Australia and even in the United States, because that's where I grew up. But where I operate from Melbourne, take my own house, for example. What you find is traditionally homes here used a lot of gas. And gas is something that these days has become very expensive. And of course, it's a fossil fuel, so it's something that we need to be getting off of anyhow. And we also find that a lot of homes, if you've got a roof that has access to the sun, the solar panel technology can be really useful. So in my own home, for example, I've tracked back how we've made various investments in things like solar panels, but also the insulation and the draft proofing, the better windows, and then switching over to heating with reverse cycle air conditioners, which some places in the world people call those heat pumps, heating our water also with a heat pump. You make all those changes, our home is saving about $3,000 a year because of those improvements. And in fact, our total energy bill for the house is down around like $500 a year. Now, we don't have an electric car yet, so we don't include that in that calculation. But just looking at the house, we're saving about $3,000 a bill because of these improvements that, and then you end up in a situation where you're pretty much just using renewable energy and your environmental footprint has practically disappeared or might even become a positive thing. Now, that's just my house, and I'm not the only one who's done this. I've got lots of friends and other colleagues who've done it too. But another thing I did a few years ago is I started a Facebook group, which is called My Efficient Electric Home. It's got 120,000 members now. We're getting 1,000 new members a week still coming in there. And we've, over the years, it's been running for 9 years, we've seen lots of people who've, had similar savings to what I just talked about, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year, perhaps, by getting their home organized in the new way, I guess I'd say. And of course, if you are able to get the electric car, there's even bigger savings there when you don't have to buy gasoline or petrol anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing that you created that online community as well for people to help each other. And it sounds like a great place to be at, but we have to start somewhere. So I'm really keen to go into further detail with you. But before we do that, we like to get to know you better. This is Have You Met Tim? And my first question for you is, what do you like doing in your spare time?
What do I like doing? I'm 65 years old these days, so I guess it's the grandkids. So got a few grandkids, and it's really fun watching them grow up and spending a lot of time with them. And unfortunately, they don't live too far away, so I can put as much time into that as I'd like when I'm not doing all this home energy stuff.
That's adorable. How old are they?
Oh, we got 6, 5, 3 in that range. So it's really good to be able to spend time with them now before they get totally tied up in school.
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely a good age. Are there specific activities that you enjoy doing with them?
Oh, well, just taking them out and having them active outside somewhere or going to the museums and all the different displays and things they've got set up around the city that kids can enjoy. But we live not too far from the beach as well. So just taking them down on the beach, whether that's summer or even in the winter time, it's quite enjoyable to
Yeah.
get outside and they can run around.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we live in a pretty good area where even during winter, the beach is pretty pleasant. It's not too harsh. So that's always nice to I actually enjoy going to the beach during winter. It's surprisingly pleasant and people should do it more.
Well, that's
Now,
right. If the sun's
oh,
shining, you're going to find some sun down there.
yeah, for sure. We have good days. But in your spare time, are there any movies, TV shows, or podcasts that you watch or listen to?
Yeah, right at the moment, I've started watching Three Body Problems. So that's on Netflix. That's a really intriguing science fiction item. And it's actually a bit of a allegory for the world dealing with problems that, like climate change. There's problems with climate change now, and there's going to be even bigger problems in the future if we don't take action. So when the world can see that it's got this problem to deal with, what are people going to do? And that's kind of what the science fiction is about there. Of course, it's aliens that are going to be coming to the Earth, and what are they going to do? But it's an allegory for climate change as well, that we've got a problem here we need to be dealing with.
Oh, interesting. So is it like kind of set in a future like a future world?
Three body problem? No,
Mhm,
it's present time, but the aliens aren't coming for 400 years. But we know they're
mhm.
coming. So what's humanity going to do? And I'm only on the third episode, so I'm not quite sure how people are going to respond to this long term threat.
All right. So how many seasons are there?
I'm not sure. I haven't. That is a bit of a trap. You should check how many episodes you're up for when you start watching something, because if you get sucked in, you could be there for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what else I found that you should be checking is how long each episode is. Because sometimes it's like one season, 6 episodes, but each episode is more than an hour long. And so that's essentially 12 regular episodes, which doesn't sound that bad, but it's almost clickbait.
That's right. They certainly have a way of sucking you into these, but they're really well done. Some of these programs, it's just amazing what they can do with the technology these days.
Yeah, for sure. Now, my next question that I wanted to ask you is, do you have a role model either in your personal life or professional life?
If we go back about 20 years, you'll find that as a chemical engineer, I was actually working in the fossil fuel industry, oil and gas. But then I started to become aware of the climate crisis and started to read more about the impact of fossil fuels were having. And so I read everything that was possible, 20, 15 years ago in the climate area. And the some of the people who have spoken out and written about the science even back then have been heroes, I suppose, because they were able to explain to me clearly what's going on and what's going to happen. So there's just a whole range of authors, I suppose I could try to remember who they were, who write about climate change, etc. And they really inspired me to get active in this space. Oh, I don't know. It's probably dangerous to pick one person, but I was watching George Monbiot the other day on internet, and he continues to inspire, because I remember reading his stuff a long time ago, and he's still out there working on it.
Yeah. No, that's completely reasonable. I feel like it's almost impossible to pick just one role model in your life, but rather more of just admirable qualities that you find in your role models. And there's so many people that are doing so many things that are truly admirable. So that's definitely reasonable to not be able to pick one. But in your lifetime, have you ever taken a course or like a class that has stuck with you to this date?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is basically my self-education about climate change has been really important, and the research that I did 20 years ago, because it ended up with me leaving the fossil fuel industry and basically starting a second career, fairly late in life, where it's to look at what are the solutions to climate change. How can we not use fossil fuels? And in particular, now these days, is what we can do in particular in our own homes. So I'd say there's a lot of self-education there. There's obviously a lot of information out there on the internet that people can get hold of, and but also, I've just met so many everyday heroes, I suppose, these days. Just this morning speaking with one. A person has set up a business where they're trying to help people to renovate their homes and to do that in a more sustainable way, making all the right decisions. So here are people who, they're investing quite a lot. They're setting up businesses, they're hiring employees, and, they're not sure if this is all going to work, if they're going to make money, if they can stay in business. But yeah, lots of heroes out there trying to reduce the impacts of the climate breakdown that we're seeing. So there's a lot of there's so many heroes out there. There's hundreds that I've run into and continue to meet every day.
Yeah, I reckon that you're even one of them. I reckon that you're one of those everyday heroes with what you're doing. Yeah. So it sounds like you're doing great work and you're really living up to the self-education that you delved into when you were a bit younger, and you're doing such amazing work. So I have no doubt that you fall into that pool of role models as well. Yeah, it's been great getting to know you. So thank you for sharing all of that about yourself. Now we'll move on to the interview section. And the first question that we like to ask is, how do you define household management?
How do I define household management? I guess the main area that I focus in, well, there's a few of them actually. It's, are you comfortable in your home? Is your home healthy? And are your energy bills reasonable? And of course, is your energy coming from fossil fuels or not? So all of these things are important, and they're interrelated. And I suppose I continue to learn about that even today. And I've been in over 1,000 homes, visiting people, doing consultations, helping them with their homes. And I'm probably doing a better job offering advice today than I was a few years ago, because you keep learning things. For example, moisture in the home. Quite often we find in Australian homes in the winter time, you wouldn't think, Australia is meant to be like meant to be a dry continent. But what we find is a lot of our homes can be too damp, particularly in the winter time, and that can lead to health issues. So when you're talking about heating the house or trying to prevent, the wind from blowing through the house, all of these things have impacts also on the health of the house and the people in there. So all those different factors come together in that way. So how do you, what do you use for cooking in your house? If you're using gas, well, you need to be aware that gives off a lot of chemicals, particularly like nitrous oxide, that can impact asthma, particularly for children. So it's a really interesting space in the home. And it's not just about energy, it's about comfort, it's about health, all of those things, economics.
Yeah, I agree. I would even argue that part of comfort isn't just the physical comfort, but also just mental, emotional comfort, knowing that you're not raking up so much in energy bills and that you're saving a lot more than you would be if you weren't paying attention to this. And also just on the inside, I feel like if you are paying attention to sustainability and your energy usage, you feel good too about yourself and how much impact you're having on the environment. So I would argue that's all interconnected as well. But as a chemical engineer specializing in sustainable energy production, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard about energy management?
Sure. Well, in the home, a really key message that I'm telling people is to heat with your air conditioner. And this is where a lot of my work started. It was back in 2015. I had a casual research role with the University of Melbourne, and we worked out that people could heat with an air conditioner, or some people would call it a heat pump, for about a third the cost of burning gas. And now we see, so this is a thing for Australians to do, but in Europe, they're getting onto the heat pumps as quickly as they can because they want to stop using the Russian gas, for example. And even in America, more people are turning to heat pumps rather than burning gas for heating. Now, heat pumps are pretty darn amazing because in the winter, they can actually get free heat out of the environment and pump it up to a temperature hot enough to heat your house. And then also in summertime, you can turn them around reverse cycle and use them to cool your house. So we find a lot of people in Australia have bought reverse cycle air conditioners for summer cooling, but no one's told them that it's the cheapest way to heat your house. So that's a key message. And, using that technology. And it's a misconception because for a long time, we told people, don't use your air conditioner. Don't use it in the summertime. It might use a lot of electricity and that'll be a big bill. And sure, if you can avoid using it in the summer, that's fine. If you can use a fan or stay cool some other way, that's okay. But in the wintertime, rather than suffering, rather than being uncomfortable in your home and possibly unhealthy, did you know that your reverse cycle air conditioner can heat, fairly economically? So that's a misconception there. Definitely use your air conditioner for heating. You can save money and be healthier in your home. But it's hard for people to get their head around how a heat pump actually works. And even as a chemical engineer, I had to sit down and draw a few drawings and make sure I fully understood them once I started thinking about them, because they are kind of magical. They use a refrigerant system to actually go outside and get heat out of the environment. Even if it's cold outside, there's still heat in our environment. I mean, it's not minus 200 degrees or anything. So a properly designed air conditioner can go out and get free heat out of the air and use that to heat your home. So when you turn on your air conditioner for heating, like 80% of the heat that comes out of it is free. It's free heat it got from outside. So use that.
Oh, yeah. Is it a mode that people have to set on with their air conditioners? Like, is the reverse cycle air conditioner just purely just a type of air conditioner that's the only way that you can get your heating, or is there more like with some air conditioners, they have like the humidity mode and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, air conditioners are really amazing devices, and it can be tricky to figure out everything they do. So sure, in the summer, reverse cycle means you can use it for heating and cooling. If your air conditioner isn't reverse cycle in Australia, then it's probably just for cooling. And that's unfortunate because we really wanted to be able to do both. And most of them these days you buy do the reverse cycle because it doesn't add a lot of cost to the manufacturer to set it up that way. But for summer, yes, your air conditioner, you can put it on cool and that will keep you cool. You can put it on dry mode and that actually will dehumidify your living space maybe without cooling it that much. I mean, if it's a bit humid but not that cool, you don't want it to get any colder, but you want it to be less humid, then you can use dry mode. There's also a fan-only mode. So if you just want your air conditioner to move some air around, they'll do that. That's the fan-only mode. But then the last one is the heat mode, and you use that in wintertime to get the heat out of the environment outside and to heat your house fairly cheaply. So you can heat your house with an air conditioner for a third the cost of using gas. But also some people use electric heaters. These might be electric fan heaters or panel heaters or oil column heaters. They all work pretty much the same way, like a toaster. You put electricity in and it heats up some wires and it can heat you. And so they work, but they'll give you heat at like 4 or 5 times the cost of using an air conditioner because they're not heat pumps. They don't get any free heat from outside. So try to avoid the if you're going to use an electric heater, don't use it that much. And instead, if you've got access to one or can get one, heat with a reverse cycle air conditioner.
Yeah, interesting. I never knew that at all. I just what I'm hearing is that the reverse cycle air conditioner, that's just how it works, and you don't have to make sure that it's in any kind of mode to be able to save money then.
That's right. Just put it on. What I say to folks is find the heat button.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, some people talk about, well, if I want electrify my home. So home electrification is a big topic these days. And people say, if I want to electrify my home, that will cost a lot of money. And I'm like, well, actually, maybe not that much to start with, because you've already got a reverse cycle air conditioner. All you have to do is find the heat button on the remote control, push that, and you can start saving money and not using so much in the way of fossil fuels instantly. But you're right. If you didn't know that, there's lots of people across Australia and other places that haven't yet heard that message. And when everybody's heard the message, I can quit, but I guess I can't quit yet.
Yeah, that is suddenly news to me. And I know several of my friends who, even though they have a reverse cycle air conditioner, they think that it uses more energy and it costs more than, for example, like an electric heater, one of those portable ones, or an electric blanket. So, yeah, that's something I'm definitely going to spread. Thank you for sharing that. Now, on a larger scale, what are some of the primary benefits of reducing home energy consumption, both for household budgets and the environment? Could you bring us through some of them?
Yeah. I just want to go back to your electric blanket. By all means, use an electric blanket when you have that heat, used in a small way right next to you in your bed underneath the doona. Yeah, that's quite an efficient way to heat, and that's fine. You won't be running up a big electricity bill from using an electric blanket. But if you try to use an electric heater to, heat the entire room, then you'd be better off certainly using the air conditioner you already have. And if you don't have one, then see if you can get one, either because you own your home or even talk to your landlord. And what you find in places such as Victorian Australia, there's some very big government incentives for getting an air conditioner and stopping using of the gas or stopping using the very less efficient electric heaters. So there can be some big benefits there. Now, if I can try to remember what your question was there, I think it was, what are the benefits for saving energy in the home? Yeah, you can obviously save a lot of money. You can make your home even healthier. Like I said, if you're not using the gas cooking, that brings a lot of contaminants into the home, so that can be healthier to do it that way. And just to improve your comfort, we find in Australia, a lot of our homes have not been built that well, or mistakes have been made. So like there isn't insulation, or the insulation isn't where it's meant to be. So insulation is a pretty easy thing, and it really works. So it's important that we get our homes insulated properly. And also the draft proofing. We've got a lot of holes through our house so that the wind just blows through, and a lot of dirt and dust and smoke and other nasty things as well. So it can be important to seal up all those gaps and cracks that are letting all the wind blow through. I mean, the story I tell is in Australia, we've got a lot of gaps under our front door. But where I grew up, we had ice and snow, and we didn't have a gap under the front door because guess what? The snow would blow in. And you'd see that, and you'd say, well, I should probably fix that. Whereas in Australia, you don't get the clues so much that there's a big gap under the door and you ought to fix it, unless maybe a snake or a spider crawls in under the door, in which case you'd probably want to fix the gap. But you should be fixing it just to try to reduce the airflow. But then I also have to caution that once you've tightened up your home, you do need to open windows quite a lot, because you still need to get the carbon dioxide out of your home that you've breathed out all night long and get fresh air in. Moisture is something that needs to be managed to make sure you're not making the home too damp. So it might be useful to open a window to manage moisture. So that's the other side of it. Draft proofing puts you in control, but then you have to take that control and actually manage the air quality in your home. And that often means opening windows a lot.
Mhm. Right. And on the environmental side, how much are we actually helping the environment when we reduce our home energy consumption?
Yeah, I guess again I could use my home as an example. And if you go back, a few years, you'd find that our home was, we were buying a lot of gas and we were buying a lot of electricity. And in those days, the electricity was pretty much all coming from burning coal. Now, all around the world, all the different electricity grids, they are getting, a bit cleaner and greener. People are using less coal, less gas. There's more wind and solar and hydropower being used. to make our electricity supplies renewable. But for our own house, if I go back and look at years ago, we bought a lot of gas, we bought a lot of electricity. These days, we don't buy any gas in our home because it's all electric. And if we look at the home over the course of a year, the home actually produces more electricity than we have to buy because, of course, we've got the solar panels on the roof. And it's not a big set of solar panels. It's only about 7 kilowatts. My son just put 13 kilowatts on his home, and there's homes that even have like 20 kilowatts of solar panels. But for a fairly modest size solar system in a place, Melbourne, where the sun isn't even always the best all year round, still, our house is efficient enough. We don't waste energy, and we heat with efficient air conditioners, as I mentioned. So if you add up all the electricity use over the course of the year, sure, we still buy electricity at night because we don't have a battery. And if the sun's not shining that much and we're using electricity, we might have to buy electricity off the grid. But at other times, the sun is shining, and so we sell electricity onto the grid. And when you add up all the numbers over the course of a year, our home produces a lot more electricity than we buy on a net basis. So you could say the home's even better than net zero. It's net positive. It's the home is basically an energy station when you look at it over the course of a year.
Yeah, that's great. Now, how much should people be prepared to pay for when they consider using solar panels or installing solar panels into the home?
Yeah, there's all the different topics that we've already mentioned here for improving the home, whether it's heating with an air conditioner, heating your water with a heat pump, getting an induction cooktop, the insulation, the draft proofing, better window coverings inside and out to keep the heat in the winter and keep the heat out in the summertime. Those are all things you can spend money on. And also the solar panels is something that you could spend money on. Or getting an electric car could be something that you could spend money on. The best bang for buck isn't necessarily the solar panels, for example. People see the solar panels on the roof of their neighbor and they're like, well, I want those. And they've told me how small their electricity bill is. And so you start to think it's an attractive thing and something you should do. And maybe you should, but you should also look at the other things that you could be doing and maybe even get professional advice. I'm a professional advisor, but all around the world you can find people like me who have been trained to offer advice in the home about what is the best thing to do. And also, if I go into a home, the first thing I ask them is, what are you trying to accomplish here? And, they'll say, I'm really freezing in my home in winter and I want to fix that. Or my bill's too high. Or I do want to use more renewable energy. So every home is different and people want to accomplish different things. And so then that can impact, what is actually the best thing for you to be spending your money on. So it's not necessarily the solar panels, but, they can definitely be a good thing to do as well. But I'd want to make sure that people have checked their insulation and their draft proofing and all that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Nevertheless, if for those who are considering getting solar panels, for whatever reason, perhaps they have already achieved or fulfilled the more low effort, low cost amendments to their household energy usage, how much should they be prepared to pay for?
You could get with all the government rebates and incentives that are available, and those can be on a federal level or sometimes they're on a state level. Australia certainly has some of the cheapest solar panel installation costs in the whole world. So for $5,000 out of pocket, you could definitely be getting an interesting set of solar panels, or you might even want to spend more to get a bigger set. And it can depend on how big your roof is. It makes no sense to put a small solar system on a wonderful roof. You might as well just keep going and put up a few more, and you'll get value out of that because you might find that this system can produce a lot more than you need in the summer, but in the winter, you're happy to get as much electricity as you can out of the solar panels to run a house in winter, because you still need to heat your water and heat your house and do all those other things, wash your clothes. So it can make sense to make sure that you're putting enough solar panels on your house. But as I said, for $5,000, you could get some solar panels, and the government might be contributing $2,000 or $3,000 to that as well. Or you might want to spend $10,000 on the solar panels and get a bit more. But it's in that range of prices. Yeah, you won't get a lot for $1,000, and you don't need to spend $20,000.
Hmm. Yeah, it certainly seems like an attractive investment. But what are some of the things that people have to consider when, like looking at the size of the roof or how much sun their area gets, for example? What factors should people take into account when deciding how many solar panels to get and where where to install them?
Yeah, I talk about the logic of the roof. So yeah, in Australia, it's you mostly want to put the solar panels on the north and in unshaded areas. So if there are trees, your trees or your neighbor's trees, those can certainly get in the way. But as I said, if you have a large section of roof facing north, then you should at least get a design and a quote for filling that up, because that's a very logical thing to do. And then if that breaks the budget, well, maybe you have to spend a bit less. But at least you will have looked at it, and you won't have regrets later on saying, oh, I should have got a few more solar panels, because we do see that all the time. People in the Facebook group, My Efficient Electric Home, people will say, oh, I got solar panels and, it was a decent sized system, 6 kilowatts, but, should I get 2 or 3 kilowatts more now? I've got nice space on my roof, north facing. And it's like, well, no, to add a few more panels, that's not really going to be that cost effective. And you're probably better off spending your money somewhere else. And it's a shame you didn't, get more panels right at the beginning when, the whole team came out to do the installation. They might as well have, done a big enough system. I guess I put it this way: we've got like 100,000 members at the Facebook group, My Efficient Electric Home, and most of them, or quite a few of them, would have solar. And we've yet to hear a complaint. We've not heard one complaint from someone saying their solar is too big, but we've had lots of complaints of people saying, "Gee, I wish I had just got a bit more." So that is definitely a key thing to consider. How much do you need? And don't just think about what it'll do in summer. Think about what it's going to do on a cloudy winter day when you still want electricity. That's a situation where people say, "Oh, I wish I had a bit more because on a cloudy winter day, what I had wasn't really doing enough for me." So don't have any regrets. Make sure you do it once, do it properly, and then forget about it. Move on with other things in your life.
Hmm. Yeah, that certainly illustrates how important it is to think a bit more about the sizing of the roof and all these other factors as well. But on the end of the medium effort, medium cost kind of amendments that we can make in our household energy usage, are the are there any energy efficient appliances we should be looking out for, and how should we look out for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big item is getting a house off gas. And the things that use gas can be your gas space heater, your gas hot water service, your gas cooktop, and get rid of them all, because I often do public presentations and I'll ask people, put up your hand if you want to get a gas bill for the rest of your life. And no one puts their hand up. No one wants to get a gas bill for the rest of your life. And these days, you don't have to. You might not be able to do it straight away. In fact, in our home, it probably took 5 years. We brought the air conditioners in, and then we changed out the hot water service eventually. And then we had to do a minor remodel of the kitchen, and that's finally when the induction cooktop came in. But then I was able to ring up the gas supplier and say, you can see I'm not using gas anymore. Stop charging me. And they'll even come out and they'll take away the gas meter. So you don't, you're probably going to get, you're probably going to have to pay a water sewage bill for the rest of your life, and you're probably going to have to pay an electricity bill for the rest of your life. But one thing you don't have to pay is a gas bill. So that's some really big savings there. A lot of places around Australia, people are paying at least $1 a day to be connected to gas. So that's 365 days just to be connected, even if you use no gas. So that's a savings that you can make by totally eliminating gas from your house. And you want to do these things anyway, because you can heat your house cheaper with the reverse cycle air conditioners than gas. Like I said, a third the cost. The same equation applies to heating water. You can heat your water with a heat pump for a third the cost of gas. And then in the cooking, get an induction cooktop. They're very sexy and very controllable and very fast, and they don't put out poisonous chemicals like you get with gas. When you burn gas, they put out, just a few things: sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide, methane, formaldehyde, benzene, all of that. And it's going into your house. I mean, if you've got an extraction fan in your kitchen, definitely run that to get all the contaminants away from you as best you can. But they don't do a perfect job, and you're better off not having to burn anything in your house anymore. So those are some big savings for people.
Yeah, I have to say I can vouch for that myself because I moved from an apartment that used gas to one that didn't, and I'm only paying the electricity bill and the water bill now, and that's made such a huge difference. So I can definitely vouch for that myself. Now, for those who are also renting and have gas running in their apartments and can't necessarily afford to do these changes for whatever reason, maybe it's just that the landlord is not going to um, you know permit that. What are some of the other changes that they can do in the apartment without making these permanent changes?
Yeah, although just to cover a couple permanent things that maybe you could get the landlord to cooperate. But like I said, there's some big government incentives these days for getting an air conditioner instead of heating with gas. And with gas equipment, that needs to be checked every couple of years to make sure that it's not putting out poisonous carbon monoxide. And that's usually a cost that the landlord pays for. And, it's pretty reasonable these days for people to want an air conditioner anyway for summer. I mean, the planet's getting hotter, and, you may need an air conditioner just to survive, particularly if you're older or if you have any health issues. We don't want people to die in their hot homes. So there could be a reasonable case to make with a landlord, particularly with all the government incentives to get an air conditioner. And then the tenant has cheaper winter heating, and the landlord doesn't have to pay to have it checked for the carbon monoxide gas anymore. So there could be some advantages there. On the cooking, you might have a gas cooker, but you don't have to use it. These days, you can get hold of portable induction cooktops. So for like $75 from IKEA, or maybe that's for a one burner sort of induction cooktop. You just plug these into the wall. So you don't even need an electrician. Some people even get 2 or 3 of those. It depends on how the kitchen is set up. But yeah, if you, for example, if your child has asthma and maybe your extraction fan is not that good in the kitchen, you don't have great ventilation, you really want to stop cooking with gas as soon as possible. And you can stop cooking with gas tomorrow just by going to the shop and getting a portable induction cooktop. So that's something that both householders and tenants can try with the cooking. We did that. We knew that, we weren't going to get around to renovating our kitchen straight away. And so we went and bought a portable induction cooktop and plugged that into the wall and used that for a bit. We still have it. Sometimes we loan it out to friends and neighbors so they can understand what induction cooking is about. But also, maybe I want to, cook a stir fry or some soup on a very hot day. I'll do that outside. I'll take the portable hot plate outside and cook outside rather than doing it inside on a hot day. So we still get some fun out of the portable induction cooktop.
Yeah, I love the portable induction cooktop also because you basically can put it in the middle of the dinner table and do kind of like a hot pot situation, which is always fun, or like just a grill and people can grill themselves. So that's always good to have in the home as well, apart from just saving money and avoiding the gas cooktop. So that's a terrific suggestion. Now, how would you recommend homeowners assessing their current energy usage and identifying the areas in which they can make meaningful reductions in their bills?
Well, if your home's uncomfortable, because the insulation is not that great, or the window coverings aren't that good, or it's drafty, those things are all worth fixing because they will reduce your energy bills and they will make you more comfortable and healthy. So those things you can kind of just feel and say, right, this house is not a healthy house, or it's not a comfortable house. It's worth fixing those things. Now, you may not know exactly what to do, and that's where you need to get some advice. I've written a book, My Efficient Electric Home Handbook, so you might find that, and that might help you. Or I mentioned the Facebook group. That can be another source of information. Or there's lots of sources of information out there that whether governments have put them together or not-for-profit organizations, you can find some information there. Or you might want to hire a professional consultant such as myself to come into your house. I go into a home, I spend 3 hours with the client. It's kind of like a tutorial. Together we look at everything. I take along a ladder and I crawl into the roof space to check out the insulation, and the homeowner or renter can come with me as well if they want to see what the insulation looks like, or otherwise I'll bring back some photos. We look at the energy bills. We see what people are paying, what sort of plan they're on. Is it the best plan that they can get, or if there's some money to be saved by going on to a different plan or switching providers. There can be various ways to monitor your electricity use. In some jurisdictions, we have these smart meters, which measure your electricity every few seconds and send that information back to the headquarters. So you can tap into that information too. And so you can see, how much electricity you spent yesterday, and then make some changes. And then you can compare it, compare a couple of days and say, right, on this day I did one thing, on the other day I did something different. Did that cost me more or less? So that sort of technology information is becoming more accessible to people. So those are some of the ways that people can try and assess their situation, decide what to do next.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, lastly, what advice do you have for those who would like to start saving on energy bills and reducing the environmental footprint, but aren't sure where to start?
Yeah, if you're not sure where to start, well, you could Google my name. I'll put that out there, Tim Forcey. It's a name you can Google, and you'll find lots of stuff, articles that I've written, and other links. And so that may give you some clues. Like I said, heat with your air conditioner, that can generally be number one if you haven't tried that before. Be aware there's a filter in your air conditioner that needs to be cleaned. That can be done DIY. Often things that blow air around, whether it's your clothes dryer or your dehumidifier, whatever, will have an air filter in there. So make sure you keep that clean and you do the basic maintenance for your equipment. Your kitchen extraction fan will have a filter to trap grease and do other things. So make sure that's kept clean. That improves the capabilities of the extraction fan. So sometimes there's basic maintenance to be done. Some of the draft proofing things can be done DIY. There's lots of videos out there on YouTube. In fact, my son and my daughter and son-in-law, they've been plastering up some holes in their house, which maybe they thought that I was going to do it, but I've been busy doing all these other things like podcasts and writing books. And so they went on to YouTube and bought the plaster repair tools. And so I was over there the other day, and they still need to do a bit of sanding, but they plugged up some holes, so that's good. Often that draft proofing can be done DIY. And sometimes even in rentals, there's things that you can do that a landlord's not going to notice, and you've only improved the property anyway. So those can be a few tips.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I learned so much from this episode. Like I said before, with the air conditioning, that was news to me. Not that I don't do it. I actually do it. I just didn't know that I was saving so much. And I continue using my portable heater to heat up my bedroom because I somehow thought that was more energy efficient. So that is very, very helpful for me. So thank you so much for sharing that once again. We're now moving on to the practices and habits section. And the first question I have for you here is, what is a habit that you recommend practicing to lower household energy usage?
A habit. Well, here's an important one. And I wrote an article on this, and it's winter time here where I'm at. Don't hang your laundry around your house to dry. We see a lot of this, people hanging laundry around their house to dry, and they think it's an efficient thing to do and an energy saving and environmental saving thing to do. But if you hang your clothing around your house to dry in the winter with the windows closed, you can be putting too much moisture into your home, and it can end up being fairly unhealthy. And in the worst case, it can start creating mold. But even before that, asthmatics will do better if the humidity is not so high in a place. You might see that you get condensation on the glass of your windows on a cold morning. And it's like, where'd all that moisture come from? Some of it you would have breathed out, and you're not going to stop that. I'm not recommending to anyone to stop breathing, but I do recommend to people that they don't hang the laundry around the house to dry with the windows closed. Hang it outdoors when you can. Maybe take it to a laundromat if you have to. But these days, be aware that they've invented very efficient clothes dryers. Now, it's not the old sort, which was called a vented dryer, and you'd put your clothes in there, and it would cost a lot to run, and it would put this moisture, into the laundry room or into your face, or if you didn't have it vented outside. And those were pretty nasty, and I can see why people didn't like to use them much. But these days, they've invented very efficient heat pump condensing clothes dryers. The old style dryers were 1 or 2 energy stars. These new ones are 7 to 10, and they use like a third of the electricity, and they condense all the moisture into a bin, which you can then put down the drain. So rather than hanging clothes around your house to dry, which can give you moisture issues and can make the whole house feel damp and uncomfortable anyway, see if you have the possibility of using a heat pump condensing clothes dryer to dry your clothes. It won't cost you a lot of electricity, and you can dump the moisture down the drain, which is where it belongs. So there's a habit to get into.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one. I guess it's kind of self-explanatory that moisture gets into your home and lingers there, but I suppose it's something that the everyman doesn't really think about because it's something that people do quite often. Like it's not an uncommon habit to do. So that's definitely something that I will take into account as well. I have to admit that I've done that before. I don't do it now because I just use a dryer, but it's definitely something that a lot of my friends do practice themselves. So I'll definitely be spreading that word. Thank you, Tim. Now we're moving on to the questions from the audience section. We have 2 questions here. The first one being, how can we identify areas where we can improve energy efficiency?
Yeah, I guess start reading. Try to find where there's some information that pertains to your part of the world, whether it's published by a government organization or not-for-profit, or as I said, Google my name. You might find some interesting article that comes up and gives you some ideas. But also, as I said before, if your home is uncomfortable, you may know where there's wind blowing through the house. So Google the different ways that you might be able to get some draft proofing happening. If you've got an air conditioner that you can start using that for heating, that will save you some money straight away. And possibly, well, here's a tip: if you have a roof space that you can have a look into and look at the insulation, if you have a look up there, you might find that it's not laid down very neatly. It's all strewn around because someone's been up there and has moved it and put it out of place. That should all be put back in place so that it'll actually work. And whether you're going to be able to fix that DIY safely or if you need to get a professional in, at least you will have had a bit of a look around your property to understand how it works.
Mhm. And aside from installing solar panels, which is a bigger effort than other changes that we can do, how much savings can we actually rake up from upgrading to energy efficient appliances?
Yeah, the solar panels. I once wrote an article that said 22 different ways you can reduce your energy bills before you spend on solar panels. So there can be a lot of other things that can make a lot of sense, be a lot better bang for buck than the solar panels. And whether that's the draft proofing, the insulation, doing the right maintenance on the equipment that you have, choosing the correct way to heat. For example, how much energy do you use in the shower? Get a bucket and measure the flow of your shower head and aim for it not to use more than, say, about 8 liters a minute. You ought to be able to have a nice shower using 8 liters a minute with a decent shower head. If you're using a lot more water than that, well, you're wasting energy, you're wasting water. So that can be another tip. Get a bucket and and figure out how much water your shower head is using.
Yeah, those are some great pieces of advice. Thank you for sharing that. And that's all for audience questions. So if you'd like to submit your questions to our guests, check out Instagram stories early in the week, Monday or Tuesday, AEST. You'll see who we're talking to and what we're talking about, and you just might hear your question on the air. Now we're moving on to open mic, and this is your chance, Tim, to talk about anything that you're passionate about that doesn't have to be related to the topic. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, it's important that people try to improve their homes. You can be healthier and more comfortable and not using fossil fuels. But even more important probably is that people get active outside of their homes, because we're not reducing the use of the fossil fuels fast enough to really get on top of the climate crisis. Politicians are making the wrong decisions. Politicians are still approving more fossil fuel projects. So there's still a lot of bad decisions being made out there by governments and society and even businesses. So if you can get active outside of your home, that's probably even more important. I've done this myself. Whether you start your own community group to become active and to be able to influence politicians, or join groups that already exist, it can be quite a lot of fun. You meet a lot new people, and people who, as I say, are these everyday heroes doing fantastic things. So yeah, you can spend a bit of time fixing up your own home, but also see how you can get involved with improving the greater world would be a piece of my advice.
Yeah, or even sharing it in your own existing community, like your friends and people who are close to you could do immensely, I figure. So thank you really so much for joining us today. I learned an incredible amount from you. If our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, where should they go?
Google my name, Tim Forcey, or of course I got this book coming out, My Efficient Electric Home Handbook, which you can either get a hard copy of that or it's available in the ebook form as well. And it's sold many places. Official publication is the 18th of June, 2024.
Sounds amazing. We'll link all that in the show notes. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you once again, Tim, for joining us today. We'll catch you in the next episode.
You've been listening to On the House, produced by the Household Management Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people find it so we can grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at hm.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Yastra. Thanks for tuning in.